Welcome back to another episode of Profit Minded Business Podcast, where we are joined by our two co-hosts, Jacob Andrews and Lynn Spencer. And of course, we are now joined with Wendy Kinney, the owner of PowerCore. It is fantastic that she has joined us today. She is a big part of why we are inspired to start this podcast. We come together so often because small business owners don't have the chance to have conversations that drive insights and conversation. And the reality is that we sometimes suffer silently, and that drives us to isolate ourselves and become frustrated. So being a part of PowerCore has allowed us to really come out of our shell and find ourselves in a place of, wow.
If I could take it from there, I mean, what PowerCore has really allowed me to do is become comfortable speaking in front of other people, building relationships really outside of just business, but having the personal connection that I've been able to have with you guys. And it's all just based on referrals, right? To grow your business organically. And there's no better way to do that than just building relationships. And that's the foundation that PowerCore has provided for all of us to come together. And, what I think you were trying to say is, that business owners often suffer silently. They don't have PowerCore a lot of times where they're having those coffee conversations to really, get people talking. So you're not, trying to navigate those problems alone. You have someone else that's going through those same problems or similar problems, even though you might be talking to someone who owns an AC repair business and I have a media company, and you wouldn't think that we'd be able to help each other, but PowerCore, connects us so that we can. And if you wanted to explain more about how PowerCore got started and where it is today and how you got there, I would love to hear that.
So how it got started is I think I'm going to start with how it got started for me. So I was introduced by my across the street neighbor to a guy who invited me to a PowerCore team 2 hours from home.
Wow.
So my very first meeting was 2 hours from home at 7 o'clock in the morning. And the reason that my neighbor had done this is because I'm intensely shy and introverted. And I had shared with her that I had recently given myself the assignment to go to one something a week. And sometimes I would get out of the car, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I'd make it to the door but not make it in. Sometimes I can remember going in and sitting down and standing up and leaving. And so when she said, I've got a friend in Melbourne who has something you might be interested in, I thought to myself, well, if I drove for 2 hours, I'd probably go in. And even if I embarrassed myself, they wouldn't know me, so I wouldn't have to kill anyone. So that's why I said yes to go. Well, it was a very big team of people. I got there right as it was starting. The first part of a PowerCore meeting, everybody goes around the table and shares some information about themselves. We were at the Holiday Inn right across the street from the Melbourne at Melbourne Airport, and as we went around the table, I just slid my chair back and said pass, and they went right on by me. And I was so grateful. I never let anybody do that now. and one of the 7-minute presentations that day was the CPA. And I sat there taking notes, thinking to myself, how come the guy I'm paying isn't telling me this? Right. How come my own CPA isn't sharing this kind of information with me? Right. And I had just come off a very bad business deal. Are you ready? I bought a restaurant.
Ooh.
and I'd come off that, and I was a couple of years off that, and what was really clear to me from this meeting was that if I had been in a group like this, my CPA would have told me things, my banker wouldn't have kept giving me money, my commercial leasing agent would have helped me out, right? But I didn't have any of that as a restaurant owner. I didn't have a place to go. I didn't know who to ask. The people I thought I was paying, I wasn't asking them the right questions. They weren't proactive about that, right? And so I originally joined a PowerCore team not because I thought I would get referrals. I was wrong, but I was very clear. I didn't think I would get referrals. But I joined because I wanted to be able to ask a question. Right. I wanted to have somebody to ask a question of.
And your story 100% mimics mine.
You too?
What's surprising to me, though, is probably to these two as well, is that I do not think of you as an introvert, and you are just a wealth of knowledge, and you're such a great teacher, and you've been alongside each of us individually and as a group, encouraging us. And so to hear this story is just shocking to me.
So another part of the PowerCore team is that 7-minute presentation. And when I joined a team, I evaded, and I say that in the tax sense of the word, my first 7-minute presentation for a year.
Wow.
Every time it was my turn, I had to be out of town. And one day the chiropractor said to me, Robin Feynman, she said to me, "You haven't done a 7-minute in a long time." And I looked her right in the eye and I said, "You must have been gone that week."
See, we even share that similar story as well. I evaded all 7 minutes.
So I really credit that PowerCore team for what I'm doing now, because they loved me through that. I don't think they didn't notice, right? You would notice, right? Robin noticed. I think that they just loved me through that uncomfortableness of what had to happen for me to move forward.
Well, the power behind it is, it's not just the exposure to the group, but it's the training behind it. I mean, so much of what you have done, and I've talked to PowerCore people who, at first glance, you think, outside of PowerCore, I didn't know they were PowerCore yet, and you think, oh, this person isn't going to do a whole lot, isn't going to say a whole lot. All of a sudden, you start talking to them, and they're a wealth of information, they're knowledgeable in what they're doing, and they're communicating well. And
Which is impressive.
Yeah.
Jason Wade, okay, let me just tell you something.
He's a thing, isn't he?
He is amazing. Like, I ran into him at some random networking thing, totally separate from PowerCore. It was like an after-hours type, shindig. And I looked over at him, and he was kind of sitting away,
He's an introvert.
He's an introvert.
Do you guys know him?
I've heard the name, but no.
You should have him on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Is he website?
Yes,
Yeah.
I referred you to him. But so Jason Wade was sitting over there kind of in the corner. He wasn't not interacting, but he was an introvert. And all of a sudden, I started talking to him, and it was the best conversation I've had. It was so awesome. I was like, wow, I had no idea I was going to come over here and have this experience. But that goes back to the training.
So I just want to plug Jason for a minute. He understands PowerCore better than I do. I'm really clear on that. And if he's one of your mentors, what he'll say to you is, there are 6 things that are important for you to understand about PowerCore, and then he tells you what they are, right? And if you don't say what's number 6, he knows you're not going to make it. And number 6 is you asking the question, what's number 6? Because if you weren't paying attention to the fact that he only gave you 5, you don't qualify.
Wow. Yeah, the attention to detail.
That's Jason. That's Jason Wade. He's awesome.
He is awesome. But I just know that there's a lot more to PowerCore than just getting up at 7 and being there on time and doing your 1 minute and your 7 minutes. It's the training.
So what I think is so important is for people to realize that none of the PowerCore systems are about PowerCore. All of the PowerCore systems are about humans, because humans are PowerCore members.
Right.
And so one of the systems is to have coffee with one member every week. Yeah. Well, that's a system to apply in every association I belong to. So I believe, I drink my own Kool-Aid, I believe that we should each belong to 3 different types of associations. And that means that in between every meeting, I need to have coffee or lunch with one person from that association, because if I just go, and sometimes I can't, right? I'm not building the relationships that will give me benefit from that group.
Right.
So that habit, I think a lot of us get from PowerCore, because PowerCore members are so comfortable inviting each other to coffee. They're so comfortable splitting the check. They're so comfortable with the time. They're so comfortable with that then I think new members get comfortable with that, and they get comfortable inviting somebody from another association to coffee because they had a place to practice.
Right. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought that was like the best thing for me. So I was actually brought into PowerCore by Butch Nicholson, and I had no idea really what to expect. He told me to bring like 30 business cards and just be ready to talk a minute about my business, and that was it. And you don't realize, even just talking a minute about your business when you have no sort of experience doing that before, it's a challenge and it makes you uncomfortable. And that was one of the best things I found about PowerCore. It really brings you out of your comfort zone. Whether you're an introvert or not, I think everyone's an introvert to some degree, but PowerCore, it is what you make of it. So if you force yourself to get up there, speak about your business in a way that is going to, generate credibility, that people want to refer to you, want to talk with you, have a conversation with you, you're going to have a lot better time than, avoiding a 7-minute presentation.
I think all of us as business owners are good at what we do, and we enjoy what we do, I hope. But getting up and talking about what you do in front of a group of people is so tough. And so you can just have such a poor presentation and not show how great you are.
Yes.
And PowerCore has taught me how to be comfortable talking in front of people, whether it's a prepared speech or just get up and take care of something on the spot.
And I feel like the reason it's so powerful, and I'm going to give you another example of the same place and where it's powerful, is because in a PowerCore meeting, it doesn't really matter if you blow the 7-minute. They're going to love you anyway,
Yep.
right? You can do
That's your
the
team.
world's worst 7-minute, and they're going to applaud for you, and they're going to ask you questions, and they're just going to say, you did so good, and we just love you so much. And that's not real world, right? And so what PowerCore does is give me a chance to practice so that in the real world, when it matters, and someone says, what do you do? I've got a very small piece of information that I can respond with confidence and clarity. Now, another place where that's similar is the membership coordinator in a PowerCore structure takes care of problems. And what I've learned is that if a problem happens inside a team, if the membership coordinator says, I'm out of here, I don't have time to deal with this, they won't die. Nobody's going to die if their PowerCore team goes away. They're still going to have a business. Their life is still going to be fine. What happens is 3 months later in their business, in their life, that problem shows up. And so what happened in the PowerCore team was a chance for them to practice so that 3 months later, when it showed up for real, where it would matter, they weren't doing it for the first time. They'd been through it already.
What are some examples of the problems you're talking about?
So this week, there's a team that has to release a member. And I promise, and it's not easy. And it's an established member. And I promise you that in 3 months, that membership coordinator is going to have to fire an employee. It'll just be the way it is. That'll just be the way it is. And so if the PowerCore team blows up, nobody will die. But if they don't fire that employee well, it'll be bad.
Yeah. I think going back to the training as well, one of the most important things that helped me translate from a PowerCore meeting into the real world was having your focus on one specific topic and not trying to explain the ins and outs, going into the weeds of your business. Nobody
cares.
Yeah, exactly. What is the value? What
Right.
benefit do you provide to the person, the end user of your product or service? And being able to succinctly talk about that in a 1 or 7-minute presentation and not try to check all the boxes in one go, just cater to the person that you're having a conversation with was transformative for me. Just because with how widespread my business is, I want to try to talk about everything,
Right.
and then realize 4 or 5 weeks into my 1 minutes, wow, I don't think people know what I'm doing. And it wasn't until I took a minute each week to talk about each individual thing that started to click. And especially with the 7-minute, having a visual representation of what I did, then people started to get it a lot more.
Yeah. Our fear is that if we don't talk about everything, we'll miss something. And the reality is if we try to talk about everything, we're going to miss everything. And it's really hard. I think we have to come to that epiphany on our own And I think that a PowerCore team is a good place to have that epiphany. I came here from a meeting with an estate attorney, and she just had that epiphany that she wasn't getting anything and didn't realize why. And then she took one thing and talked about a tiny little piece, and wow, the lights just came on for her team and for her.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it really boils down to is PowerCore teaches you how to communicate better.
Yes, from a business standpoint.
Right.
And I'm really clear that we don't, at least I didn't, we don't get that training anywhere else in our lives. I mean, I didn't. And it's not sales training, right?
It's people training.
A lot of times people have been to sales training.
Right.
This isn't about sales training.
I mean, I think even a Toastmasters wouldn't deliver the same way. And I would immediately think Toastmasters is your speaking training, and it's not.
I love Toastmasters. Yes, Are you guys Toastmasters members?
I've floated in, but never stayed.
So let me tell you how to choose a Toastmasters team.
Okay.
Or club or whatever. So in a Toastmasters organization, there's no attendance requirement. And so what that means is people can float in and not come back for a month, and then nobody really knows them. And so then they're not on the schedule, or when they are on the schedule, nobody really knows them. And so the key to a good Toastmasters club is whether or not they make sure that everybody who's there speaks every time. Because if the group has gotten kind of selective and said we're only gonna call the people for table topics who are here every time, or we're only gonna call the people for longer presentations who we know well, then the new people never get engaged, right? And so in the Atlanta area, there's a great Toastmasters club called the Dogwood Toastmasters Club, Saturday mornings, 8:00. And Kathy Fike, who's been a member there for 30 years, keeps track that every single person who's there is a part of the meeting every single time. If you got up, you're going to present.
I think that's great. And again, I mean, similar in the way to PowerCore with the rotation of the 7 minutes.
Yes.
It's, a little bit more in depth with that 7 minute, and it's not every week, but you still get the 1 minute to speak every week, making sure everyone's heard, no one's left out, as long as they show up on time, which I think is great. It builds consistency as well, and it shows someone that you're credible, willing to go and not really above and beyond, but
meet your obligations.
Meet your obligations. And if you can't do that at a meeting, chances are you might not do that in your business,
right?
It doesn't all translate like that. No. And people,
I've got a good example of that, but will you edit this out if you don't want this story? So I recently got a postcard from a realtor, and printed on the postcard, you guys know what I'm talking about, realtors who send cold call postcards, right, by the mail. And it says, happy, and then there's a little carrot, and above it is written, belated Mother's Day. Now, I'm not a mother, so, right? But it means that when he printed the postcards, he knew they were late. Right?
Yeah.
And so what's he telling me about himself as a realtor? He's telling me I'm not going to close on time.
Dang.
Yeah.
And I don't know that people get a chance to understand and prove that. Clearly his broker didn't tell him that, right? And his advertising agency didn't tell him that. I don't think that people get a chance to prove that in many other places of their life.
So let me ask you this, because you touch on some of these topics during your training. How did you come up with that training, and what was that process like? I mean, because I imagine like when I went through my PowerCore training, then officer training, it wasn't like that from the get-go.
No.
It had to have been a long process to get it to where it is today.
Well, and the reality too is that, I mean, and I've heard you say this, and oftentimes I recognize my own failures after I hear all your wisdom pieces. But it's the systems that were developed that translate, like you just said about that realtor, is that you've got to watch out and understand that your behaviors speak much louder than your postcard.
Yes.
And those behaviors drive your success. And there's a piece of wisdom you shared with us before that I'm sure will come back up. I mean, it's exactly what you're asking. How did this training come about? And to me, it's like every system was designed to help someone grow and
Yes.
challenge themselves to be a
Yes.
better business professional in order to find the success that they're looking for in business.
Yeah. So info minutes, the whole concept of info minutes and the components of info minutes, it took a while for that to kind of flesh out, and it took a lot of reading, and most important, it took a lot of failing, right? Because it's just unrealistic for us to think that the first thing out of the box is going to hit. And because I get to go to a different PowerCore team every day, today I was at Sandy Springs, then I get to see what the, let's take Realtor, says at every single team. And
Yeah.
because all the reports come back to me, then I get to see what Realtors are making money and what Realtors aren't, right?
Wow.
And so now I can say, okay, what are my notes from this team where the Realtor is making money, and what's the difference in this team where the Realtor isn't making money? And a place where that showed up for me early days in the last century, was Joe DeGange, and he was a financial planner. And what I noticed is he was getting nothing. He just was getting nothing. And according to my notes, he was ending his info minutes with, I'm a good referral, or a good lead for me is that aunt who taught first grade for 30 years. Now the language pattern is that aunt, right? So that's what he would say. 15 years later, I read James Patterson's book, The Secret Life of Pronouns, where they've done research at University of Texas, Austin, about how that language pattern, the language pattern of putting the article that in front of the noun, that aunt, impedes mental processes. I know, isn't it amazing?
That's
Yeah. So I've got notes on this from ever. My big hit is if Patterson calls me and asks for my notes and my recordings of info minutes. That's my big hit.
We're going to make sure he gets a copy
I've got
of
all
those.
those. I've got all those recordings.
Yeah.
So my that knowing, and Patterson's book is a perfect place to go for the data and the research about pronouns. That the pronoun you is a sales pronoun, and makes the person think, I need this, I don't need this, but it doesn't make them think about which of their clients need it.
Right.
And the pronoun we, Patterson says, has 5 different meanings. Only one of them is positive. We means, usually when a speaker says we, what they want to convey is that their business is bigger than just them, right?
Right.
Or they want to give credit to the other people in the business. But what the listener hears is, if something goes wrong, it won't be his fault.
Yeah.
So we is an anti-referral word. And then there's other things too, on intelligence, which was written by the guy who invented the Palm Pilot. Remember that?
Yeah. I have one.
Wonderful book on intelligence. And he has information about words in his book because he's a neurologist. So he understands how the human brain works with systems to create a result. And that's just a really important thing. So Info Minute Seminar kind of evolved over time because I was taking notes. Orientation happened because Judy Meacham came into the office and said, we need orientation, and I'm going to do it.
Wow.
We did business slips happened because Daryl Rogers went to coffee with me and said, we're tracking the wrong thing. We're tracking the opportunity, but we're not tracking whether or not it closes. And so we did business slips are about closed. Feed forward cards happened because Jill Pullen says, how do we know whether or not we gave a good 7-minute presentation? We're not getting any information about the 7-minute presentation.
Wow.
So I don't feel like it's my job to have all the good ideas. I think, and the reason we have mentoring program. So Karen Sullen walked into the office, finger first, at 9 o'clock in the morning, and she said, you have a problem. and so I stood up, and she said, we have 30 members on our team. We always have 30 members. 20 of us have been there for 3 years or more. The other 10 turn over every 90 days. We're not getting anything from them.
Wow.
Yeah. And that resonated so much because we had just finished doing a stratified random sampling survey that showed that members who had been with a team for more than 11 months rated the value of their best referral as 50 times higher than members who'd been with the team for less than 11 months. So if it takes 11 months to get your best referral, it takes 11 months to give your best referral, right? So those people who are in and out every 90 days,
Sure.
don't have a prayer on either side. And that's how the mentoring program started. Because the goal is, what can we do to shorten it from, what if we could shorten it from 11 to 9?
Yeah.
Or from 11 to 5, right? And then what do we have to do to keep somebody at the table long enough for them to experience that boost? Wow. So that's how the mentoring program started.
I was not expecting that at all. That basically seems like all of these processes came from PowerCore member feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My job is not to have the good ideas. My job is to have the butterfly net up, catch the good ideas, and then execute. I'm an executor. I can make it happen.
Okay.
Yep. Give me a good idea and I'll make it happen.
Now, Wendy, you've obviously seen a lot of things, a lot of small business owners. A lot of PowerCore, it's a certain type of business that tends to come into PowerCore.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
And who maybe isn't a good fit and who really is the perfect fit?
Yes. So first of all, it really is more about the person than the business, although everybody thinks it's about the business. And I'm going to answer your question about the business, but it really is more about the person.
Okay.
So here's the answer about the business. There are 3 types of businesses that do really well with referral-based marketing. The first is service or information-based businesses. So that's all 3 of you, right? Because if there's not a tangible product, if there's nothing that I get to hand you in exchange for swiping your credit card, then that's a little harder sell than when you can walk into the grocery store and buy a banana. So service and information-based businesses do really well in a PowerCore setting. The second is businesses with a lot of competition.
Sure.
So Lynn, that's you, right? Every PowerCore team has a CPA, and when every PowerCore team has a realtor, every PowerCore team has a financial planner. When a business has a lot of competition, then the referral aspect really matters to them because they need those people talking about them. And then the third type of business is a business that is so new or so unique that potential clients don't even know they exist. And they do really well in a word of mouth setting because people start talking about them. They start getting some business and expanding their network. And so whether it is a usual and customary business or a brand new business, if they're so new or so unique that potential clients don't know about them, then this type of marketing works well from it. Now, let me give you the other side of it. So what I didn't say works well is product-based businesses or transportation, UPS, right? Or government services. A lot of times the security people say, I wish a cop would join. Well, what do we have for the cop, right? So
I know what I could get from the cop. What are you
We'd
looking
probably
for
learn a
when
lot.
you're driving behind me?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a wonderful story about a light bulb salesman who was told, not to join because do you buy light bulbs from a person?
No.
Where do you buy your light bulbs?
I go to Walmart or
Yeah.
Amazon. Really.
Anywhere,
Yeah.
right? And he said the magic words. He said, I think this will work for me. And those really are the magic words because whatever you think is what you're going to get, right?
Right.
And a year later, he got the Walt Disney World account.
Ah!
So while I can say to you that the businesses that do the best are service or information based with a lot of competition or so new or so unique that potential clients don't know that they exist, the fact of the matter is it's really not about the business. It's about the individual. And if the individual knows how to ask for what they want, which is the point of Info Minute Seminar, right? If the individual knows how to identify who they want to talk to, which is the point of Best Client Workshop, if the individual understands what the end result is going to be, then any business I've found can do well in a referral marketing system. And that's about the individual, not about the business.
No, that's good.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties back into what I said. It is what you make of it. I've seen a lot of people in PowerCore that they don't go out of their way to make sure they get to know everyone. And it's easy to fall into that trap thinking that someone can't help you, like the example I use. Like, how could an AC repair shop help me when I mean, I've gone and talked to AC repair shop like company owners and like given me feedback on services because if you ask, like they do a lot of similar marketing that I was looking to do with like direct mail and you just never know where you're going to get help.
And he's a smart
feedback.
guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a business owner. He's got employees. He's a smart guy.
Exactly. So I think that, again, just goes back to being able to learn how to effectively communicate within PowerCore to get the results that you want.
And build a relationship that lets someone care enough about you to tell you the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because if they don't know you well, they're just going to say, go and God be with you.
Right.
Because they are not invested in your success. Whereas in a PowerCore team, those people want you to succeed. They're proud of you. They want you to succeed.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, so going back to some of the, benefits of PowerCore and being able to learn how to communicate, what do you think are really like the key traits that you think someone is able to develop in PowerCore, or they're going to find success if they already have these traits? Because I know I've seen some in my time in PowerCore, but I would be interested in your thoughts just because you've been on every team, you hold all the training, so I would be interested in your insight
I think
on
the
that.
key trait is the long view. I think that the people who expect a quick result. So let me give you an example of that. Tuesday, I started the day beside a mortgage broker, and my notes for her info minute say right now, and then it's this, which is, do you see what I'm doing? I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, right? So there's 7, right?
How many times she
Which
said
means
right
how
now?
many times she said you.
Oh.
So my notes from her info minute are right now, and she said you 7 times. I would not expect her to get any referrals because all referrals take 3 months to germinate. Mm-hmm. There's never a referral that comes because of what today's news story was. And that's a mistake that people make over and over again. They haven't planned their info minute. They're listening to the radio on the way into the team, and they do an info minute based on what they heard on the news this morning. No referral for you. No referral for you. Because, so I was just talking with an HVAC guy, Bill Lewis from the Town Lake team, and I said to him, what's happening in September? And he says, you know what? October, heating maintenance, heating is where it is. Well, then that's what he needs to be talking about in June.
Right.
Because referrals take 3 months for us to have these conversations, and a big mistake that people make in marketing is the happy belated Mother's Day. Mother's Day's over, right? So when the mortgage broker is talking about right now, here's what's happening, right now, here's what's happening,
It's too late.
it's too
I
late.
wonder if the department stores know that, because if you go into a department store in August, down here in Georgia, you're going to find all this winter sweaters,
So
and the boots.
watch, that's retail. That's not referral.
Yeah.
And so because all the advertising we hear and see is retail, we model it.
Oh.
That's retail.
Wow.
Totally
That's
different game.
selling to the listener, right? Referrals is not selling to the listener. Referrals is the listener taking my message somewhere else. And that's the key for whether or not people get referrals, is whether they understand that I'm not selling to the people at the table. I don't want the people at the table to be my clients, and there's a really good reason for that. Ask me why. And talking not only for the long game, but talking about something that's happening 3 months from now, so there's time for that to germinate.
So let me ask you this. What pitfalls do you see when people try to sell to the people around them at the table?
So one of the biggest pitfalls, and if you want the book on this, the book by Robert Cialdini, Influence, The Power of Persuasion, is just awesome. And then he's got a new book out called Persuasion, which is just as good. But one of the 6 things that all humans have in common, and one species of bird, is reciprocity. In other words, when you do something for me, I feel like I owe you.
Yeah.
Well, if I use you at the table,
Right.
I don't feel like I owe you referrals anymore. I gave you my money, honey. Now you owe me. I don't owe you referrals. You owe me. So, realtor, I'm having this conversation with her and saying, you don't have to sell to the table. And she says, no. How can they possibly refer to me if they haven't used me themselves? This is not a good mindset.
Right.
This cost, I don't think she got any referrals.
Well, and you've said before, and I've heard this before, that the minute a referral partner becomes a client, it's done.
Yeah, so that, Dan Ariely from Duke University, 87% of the time when someone who has referred to you repeatedly, so in our language, that's a gate opener. When someone who has referred to you repeatedly uses you themselves, 87% of the time they stop referring to you.
What is that?
So what his hypothesis is, and I actually had this experience myself. So I'll walk you through my experience and then we'll come back to his hypothesis. So photographer named Tony did headshots for Raymond, and I was there when Tony gave Raymond his headshots, and Raymond looked at it and said, oh, I look like a movie star. Isn't that nice for someone to say about their own picture? Do you like pictures of yourself?
Yeah.
You do? Do you, Lynn?
If they turn out well.
I never like pictures of myself. So when I saw that Raymond liked this picture of himself, that kind of impressed me about Tony, right? Well, then I saw Nancy's headshots, and wow, he made her look good, right? And so I decided that I would make an appointment for George and I to get headshots taken. Made the appointment, rearranged our day, right? Because this isn't something that is like going to the grocery store. This is something that you make an appointment for, like getting your teeth cleaned, right? So rearranged our day, drive up, get to the gate, push the button on the gate. He answers the phone. I said, we're here. He says, oh no. He says, you're not at the right studio. And we were about 20 minutes away from where we were supposed to be. And because he sees me all over, right? He saw me at Raymond's team. He saw me at Nancy's team. Because he sees me all over, he just assumed that I knew where his studio was. And that the address that I had for him was his home address. And he just assumed that I knew that.
Oh, man.
So what Ariely hypothesizes is that when someone has referred to us repeatedly, we think that every single one of those clients has told them all about their journey, and they haven't.
Right.
They haven't. For all kinds of reasons, they haven't, right?
Right.
And so when this person who has referred to us repeatedly wants to do business with us, we don't communicate with them fully.
Right.
We shortcut what we would normally do in our checklist with a new client, because they've referred us so much, they must know all these things. They don't need our address.
Wow.
And so Ariely's communication on this is over communicate with people who have referred to you. Don't assume they know anything, because their experience is so bad. And this is my own experience with the photographer, because it blew my day. It wasn't the only appointment I had that day. It really blew up my day. And so I did not refer to him again.
Yes.
Because of my experience.
Wow.
Right?
I get it. That's
Yeah.
powerful. Like you're so true. I mean, I can see that. Okay. Yes. Checkbox change.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the most transformative, not process, but I guess change that you've seen someone go through from entering PowerCore to where they are now, or over the course of their PowerCore
question.
membership?
Yeah, good question.
Because I just think, I mean, I've changed so much over my year that I was in PowerCore, that I could only imagine that some of the stories that you've seen.
Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, I'm sorting, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right. There's thousands of them. I think maybe one of my favorites is from Kevin Ames. He called me one day and he said, I called to tell you were right, which of course I knew that. But one of the places to use an info minute very powerfully is in voicemail. Because when I'm prospecting, or email, when I'm prospecting and I just say, hey, I'd like to be your vendor. I'd like to be your vendor. I'd like to be your vendor.
I'd love to have a call with you.
Spammy, right?
Right.
Right. And so the way around that is to use a different info minute every time. And just to every time you get voicemail, leave an info minute. And it's a different info minute, right? But it's something useful and valuable. So Kevin is a photographer and he wanted to do business with BMW in Greenville here, and so he had left, and it takes 5, 7, or 11 touches before a prospect becomes a client. He had left 7 voicemail messages, and another thing that is important is to rotate when you call. So I always keep track of what time I called. If I called you at 10:20 today, I'm going to call you at 2:30 tomorrow, right? Because I'm going to rotate back and forth. So he was calling at a new time, and the guy picked up the phone, and the guy said to him, I have told you and told you and told you that we're not interested. Now, first of all, he hadn't, because they'd never talked before, right? He'd only left 7 info minutes. He hadn't actually talked to the guy, right? So, but the guy says, the guy means, because I didn't return your calls, I have told you and told you and told you that we're not interested. My photographer just called me and said he couldn't be here tomorrow. Can you be here at 10 o'clock? And this from a guy, a creative, who had been averse to cold calling. But because of his referral training, was able to land a multi-$1,000 client. Because he had the skills and the practice to put into place to make 7 touches.
You know, you're so right. Cold calling is no fun, but to already have a structure in place with the info minutes, that's brilliant. I hadn't thought about using the 1 minutes in that framework. That's great.
So another place to use info minutes or portions of info minutes, and there are a couple of people who do this really well. Clemence, she's French. She said, you say Clemence, like, Clemence. Clemence Bradley, Jill Pullen, Rebecca Bretzi, all do this really well. They take a part of today's info minute and put it on their signature file of their email. So every week, people who get email from them are seeing a little bit of a different answer or a different point of information on their signature file. Jeff Bird did this. He does elder care. And 1 week underneath his signature file, he wrote, I'm a good referral for your friend who spends every afternoon taking care of her elderly parents, taking them to the doctor and getting groceries. She wants to be able to visit once a week as the apple of their eye, instead of every day as their housekeeper. Ooh. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So that's something he came up with for an info minute, and then he turned that into a SIG file on his email for a week. Yeah. And so everybody who got an email from him that week, I call it multi-purposing. I don't believe in multitasking, but his info minute works in his PowerCore team, and it works on his signature file, and it changes up his signature file, so it's not just the same old boring thing that nobody reads all the time.
Wendy, we've talked a lot about the info minute. Do you mind, just for the listeners who aren't as familiar with PowerCore, just, I know there's a lot to it, but can you just break it down a little bit?
Give us an info minute on an info minute.
So it's really important to have a minute, because a minute is what the human brain will listen to. And in that minute, there are 6 important parts. Now let me step outside. That was about 15 seconds, and that's 25% of a minute. And that's the part of an info minute that has to be new every week. Now I'm going back into the info minute. Kevin Ames has found that using his info minutes as a cold call tool increases his close rate with people he's trying to reach. He recently got a job with BMW because he used his info minutes every week when he called a prospect. So I'm going to step outside. That's the story part of the info minute. That's another 15 seconds, 25% of the info minute. So half of the info minute is, give me a fact, give me an example. And then there are 2 other parts in here. One is self-identification. So I might say now, my name is Wendy Kinney. You get 5 seconds for that. And another 5-second piece is why I'm good at this. And so I might say, I've read 15,011 books on referral marketing. So that was something good about yourself that applies to what you're talking about.
Is that true?
Yes.
15,011? That's awesome.
So then the other side of I have them in a Excel spreadsheet. So the other side of this is client identification. And the first part of client identification is a person and a behavior. So I might say, I'm a good referral for, by the way, that language, I'm a good referral for, that comes from Dr. Tiziana Cascara, Rothman School of Business. She does a lot of research on referrals. And it's important to realize that nobody refers to us. They don't care about us. They refer us. They refer good people to their clients who need them.
Sure.
So it's never a good referral for me is, a good lead for me is. That's not the language. That's the wrong direction. It's I'm a good referral for Your friend who hands you her son's new business card. He just graduated college and got his first job.
Wow.
So I've got a person, my friend, and I've got a behavior, hands me her son's new business card. And that's really critical, because if I don't give a clear image, then the listener, if I say to the listener, I'm a good referral for anybody who wants to grow their business, there's nothing there, right? No referral for you. Right. So when I give a clear image, then the listener thinks, who do I know that's like that? And who do I know that's not like that? All referrals happen inside the listener's head. So who do I know that's like that? Who do I know that's not like that? If I junk up that part of my info minute by saying, I'm a good referral for your best friend whose son just got new business cards, or her husband just got fired and he's thinking about starting his new business, or she's thinking about retiring and starting a new business, now there's no space for the listener to think. So one person, one behavior in 1 minute.
Right.
Followed by what's important. So what's important to my friend whose son just got his first new job? What's important to my friend whose son just got his first new job?
I would say maybe a place to live, right?
That her son
needs,
moves out of the house.
Right. Yeah.
She wants him to make enough money that he can get his own apartment.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now ready? That's not enough in an info minute.
Yeah.
Why is it important to my friend that her son makes enough money to get his own apartment?
She wants him to
Be independent.
and he wants to
Be independent.
Right.
Right? One more time. Why is it important to my friend that her son is independent?
I think it shows the example of a parenting job well done.
Yes. And that I have to say in my info minute. I'm a good referral for your friend who proudly shows you her son's new business card. She wants to make sure that everyone knows she did a good job as a parent. That's what she wants, right?
That's right.
Right? And then the last part of an info minute is, how can I start a conversation with her?
Okay.
And this is called a kindling question. And a kindling question is not a bonfire question. A bonfire is s'mores, right? Graham crackers, marshmallows, chocolate. And it's not a flamethrower question. Flamethrower question burns the relationship. So a flamethrower question to my friend who hands me the business card is, has he gotten his first evaluation yet? Have you told him that, right? She doesn't want to hear all that. That's not what she wants to talk about. We're done.
Right.
A bonfire question is, so how's he doing, right? There's no place to go, right?
I get it. Yeah.
So a kindling question is a way for me to start a conversation that will take the conversation to the person I'll refer. So a kindling question in this case might be, what does he like best about the job?
Right.
The kindling question is never going to be about me, ever. Never.
Okay.
The kindling question is always going to be just leaves and lint and twigs way to start a conversation, 2 or 3 more back and forths in the conversation, and then they're going to refer to me.
That's good.
And that's a big mistake that people make with referrals. They go right for the pitch.
I always struggle with that one.
Yeah, they'll
I
say,
have
send
as
them to
well.
me. Well, there's no referral in send them to me.
Yeah.
I like how you broke that down and had us keep going deeper for the real reason. And you've probably heard something similar where you're asking why for a particular question, and you ask yourself
The 5 whys.
5 whys until you get to the
I found that
root
3
cause.
is generally enough to get to that golden card, that commander's intent piece. And clearly most of us don't even go to 3, right? We stop
Right,
at 1.
yeah.
We stop at the obvious.
Right.
But you got to go 3 below the obvious. And that's what'll make a real impact with a listener.
So going back even further, you mentioned how you originally got started in PowerCore, but what was the transition like from joining PowerCore to now running PowerCore?
Yeah, so I put my foot in my mouth. I put my other foot in my mouth, and I changed shoes. And the way out was to make an offer to buy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was not my plan, and that's just the way it worked. So the transition, though, was good because I'm good at it.
Right.
And so that was a purple card. And I was doing a project out in California, and my aunt and uncle were out there, and so I stayed the weekend with them. So they picked me up from the hotel, and my aunt said to me, it looks like you finally found something you enjoy. And I said, took me long enough. And my uncle said, well, it took me till I was 40. And he's the patriarch of the family, right? And I said, you always knew you wanted to be a doctor. And he said, I always knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't find plastic surgery until I was 40. And so I feel really grateful to have found something that interests me and I'm good at, that allow, by the time that I could actually put my talents to work.
Yeah, that's something, again, PowerCore helped me do. It's because you mentioned like the types of businesses that work, and then more importantly, the type of people that work in PowerCore is, yeah, we do video production. There's people that do video production, but it's a lot more than that. That's just one of the core services that we offer. And so being able to really learn how to better position my business through PowerCore was really, again, just transformative, and being able to do what I want to do with my life and not have to go down one step path and, hold resentment to my parents or to
feel like a big fat failure or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just a great stepping stone, and you have the welcoming people on your team. They truly care about you. They want to see you succeed. And, if you treat them right, they're really like a sales team for you.
They are.
And it's really an experience that I don't think you can get really anywhere else. I mean, at least I haven't found that experience anywhere else. So it's great that even though I'm still not active as a member, I think even going through the officer training, my team wanted to see me as the team coordinator, and
it's a compliment.
It is, and I was like, really? They want me? I hadn't even been in a year at that point, and by far and away the youngest person on my team. So it's
an equalizer.
It really was, and it made me think, okay, maybe I'm not at the level that I thought I was, like way down here. It gave me kind of confidence. Like, all right, I am an equal. I'm not just some kid trying to figure it all out. Everyone's trying to figure it all out
And I guess you're right. There might not be other places where that happens as naturally as it does in PowerCore.
It doesn't.
There's a PowerCore member who's a member of another association, and there's a very fixed procedure that people go through to be, let's call it team coordinator, right? First you have to be this, then you have to be that, then you have to, so it's 7 years. It's a 7-year process to get to be president of the organization, and you campaign. So if you don't win the campaign at any level, that kicks you out, right? So the process inside PowerCore, first of all, there's no campaigning because we don't want a loser.
Yeah.
Right? And second, there's not a requirement that says you have to have been in business this long, or you have to have been a member this long, or you have to have done this first. If you see excellence, give excellence a shot. And I think that's what the officers training is about, is if this person has the behaviors of a leader, they'll learn what they need to know for the role at officers training.
Right.
That would be one of the pieces that helped encourage me early on. Is I think right at my 90-day mark, it was time for officer turnover, and my team probably, with the help of you, put me as PCO, and like that was very encouraging. Like, I'm brand new, I'm just hitting my 90-day eligibility, and everything is encouraging in PowerCore.
Yeah. I never use so just so that you know, I don't get to nominate. So it wasn't me saying that to them, but I only get to say no. I don't get to say yes.
Well, you didn't say no. I've heard you say no before.
I can say no. But one of the things that I want to be really clear with the nominating committee about is that I never say no because of length of membership, right? Because you didn't come to a PowerCore team knowing nothing.
Right.
You came to a PowerCore team with experience and knowledge and a business, and so we're not talking about college here, right? We come together as peers regardless how long we've been there.
Right.
So I don't feel like he hasn't been a member long enough is a reason not to nominate.
Now, kind of summing this all up, we like to ask our guests, what is like the number one piece of advice, or not just to someone starting their business, but looking to grow their business and, make it be the success that they want? What is that piece of advice, that tidbit of information?
So that's from the book I read last week called Talk Triggers, which is really good. And here's the quote: "Every process is perfectly designed to deliver the results it gets."
Yeah.
Every process is perfectly designed to deliver the results it gets. So what that means is, if my marketing isn't getting the results I want, it's because my process is wrong. Fix the process, right? Because I'm getting the results I'm getting because of the process I'm using. And the process inside PowerCore can be used in any association. That process is: be a visible officer, build your credibility, have coffee with one member in between every meeting, learn what the language that organization speaks. I mean, that process is about humans. It's not about PowerCore. It's about humans.
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of tie that into one of my philosophies is every business is a people business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're not selling a product, you're not selling a service, you're selling yourself
Right.
to someone that, wants, at the end of the day, your product or service, but they can get that anywhere.
Right. Right.
They want to work with you. And I think that was one of the big eye openers I saw in PowerCore was, there are, there's a realtor on every team.
Right.
There's an insurance agent on any team, but you can tell the difference of the passion levels. Besides, I'm like, are you doing this because you feel obligated to, or are you doing this because you want to? This is what gets you out of the bed every morning. This is, what drives you to, challenge yourself, to overcome fears and
do it anyway.
Yeah.
Be afraid and do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Not be complacent.
Yeah.
Complacency kills.
Yeah, it does.
So
It does.
I appreciate you sharing that, because that
So much.
Yeah, it goes right in with what I strive to do.
Yeah.
And I think what you mentioned, we're not all perfect. You got to where you are by failing.
Oh,
a lot.
yes. Oh my, a lot.
And I think, as counterintuitive as it sounds, the most successful people in life are the ones that fail the most, but learn from it.
Well, there's the anecdotal story about Walt Disney going to 300 banks before the 301st bank gave him money for Disney World, right? And there's lots of examples of that. And I think that, well, we were at a Michael Bolton concert, and at the intermission, the announcer said, in the 20 years it took for Michael Bolton to become an overnight success, he wrote a lot of songs that you're familiar with, and we'll play them for you now. And so there's all these songs that that you're familiar with, and you didn't know that Michael Bolton wrote those songs, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's true of all of us. We all had this learning period that people don't know about. They just see where we are right now. They don't know what it took what we had to learn in order to get where we are right now.
And in some instances, if you're still not where you strive to be, that they don't know where you're going either. And sometimes it's hard to communicate that
Do you
as well.
think that you can sometimes see where people on your team are going?
To some degree, I mean, but
I
people
can
are
see
capable
energy.
of change, at the end of the day.
Do you mean where they're going, like in their professional development, or?
Yeah. Do you think?
I think there's certain markers that kind of you can either see them maybe getting frustrated, or I mean that's always a key one. You can hear it, like I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone get up and come on guys, why haven't I gotten any referrals?
Yeah.
You can hear them.
Yeah. So in other words,
things
the process that they're using is not getting them any referrals, and they're blaming the people at the table instead of blaming their process.
Right.
Yeah, got that.
That's a big marker for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can do to help those people, or do you think it really has to come from within, the want to change themselves?
So a man who I respect but don't like, you know the difference?
Yeah, I mean,
Taught me that unsolicited advice is always for the giver. So I do not believe that I can go to you and say, hey, Jacob, you're screwing up. I don't think it's my place to do that. If you come to me and ask me, and I respect you, I'll tell you. If you come to me and ask you and I don't respect you, I'll blow it off.
I think that's funny that you mentioned that, because I've gotten advice from this, like, same advice from different people, and sometimes goes over my head, but then I hear it from someone I respect. Have never thought about it that way, but it's like, oh yeah, why haven't I been doing this all along? It's amazing how it's, again, it goes back to the individual person.
Right.
It's not the words, it's not the product, it's not the service, it's people.
Right. I try to preface, when I have advice to give someone that they haven't asked for, I try to preface it by saying, unsolicited advice is always for the giver. So I have something I want to say to you. You have no responsibility to take it. I was having a conversation with my niece, and I said, you have no responsibility to take this. All you have to say is thank you. And after I told her, she said, thank you. It's really, when I tell you something you didn't ask for, that's about me. That's not about you.
I love that
you're not obligated to take that.
I love that you brought that up. That is, I'm going through all the times that I've heard someone say, why don't they listen to me? You know, and you're like,
Because they didn't ask you.
they didn't ask.
Kind of
Right.
sounds like my teenage kids.
Yeah.
When they ask, they're truly seeking, but when
Yeah.
I tell them,
Yeah.
just get the eye roll.
I feel like if I let them know up front that I'm telling them this because I want to tell them, not because they want to hear it, right? And they can say no to me if they want. I feel like that's respectful, that I'm showing them my respect
Right. It's with
by
self-aware.
saying, you don't have to take this. You're not obligated to take this.
Yeah, otherwise, they're forced into a position of agreeing with you or not agreeing with you, and now it becomes some debate of your opinion versus my
Yeah,
opinion.
it becomes confrontational.
Jeez, yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah, I think I've had some similar experiences, particularly part of a startup circle, being involved in like the tech community, where there's a lot of older guys that, you know, want to give me advice.
They
and
want to should on you.
Exactly, based off their scars, you know.
They want to shit on you.
I mean, no,
Be aware of should.
Yeah.
and it's amazing that, you know, they haven't done what I'm doing, and yet
Right.
they still think they know the
Right.
answers. It's like,
And their clients aren't anywhere near to the client demographic you're looking at, and they still think they know the answers.
right, and it's
Yeah.
like, how about you ask me questions to have myself come up with
Just
those
say thank you.
answers? Yeah.
Just say thank you. Just say thank you.
I've learned to bite my tongue.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot better at being defensive in nature.
It goes like this. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no sense in arguing about it.
Right.
Okay.
And
Complaining gets you
don't
nowhere,
feel
yeah.
like don't feel any obligation to accept unsolicited advice. You're
Yeah.
under no obligation to accept unsolicited advice.
Yeah, I think in my experience, those are the best advisors and mentors for me. I just had my board of advisors meeting, and one of them said, you know, I don't think you should continue on developing that drone for this, and this reason, but, you know, don't listen to
Right.
me as a gray hair. You know,
Right.
you need to do what you want to do
Right.
at the end of the day.
Right.
And I think it's rare to have that sort of objectivity where, hey, just because I think it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it's the right thing to do for you.
Right.
Right.
Wow. Wendy, thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining us today. You know, if someone's listening has never heard about PowerCore, or maybe they have but they haven't joined, how can they connect with you? Or, I mean, what's the best way for them to come out?
So
and
the
test out
website
a
is
team?
powercore.net, and the phone number is 404-816-3377.
Perfect. Jacob, you know, thank you so much for co-hosting today. As always, you've got such great insights and questions. How can someone, you know, touch base with you to learn more about what you're doing? Obviously, you are the producer of this show, and that you've done a fantastic job for us. Someone who may want to reach out to, maybe connect with you on doing their own podcast, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, you go to our website, iVue.media, go to any of our social media pages, or reach out to me directly at jacob.andrews@ivue.media, or by phone at 678-249-0579.
Thank you for that. And of course, Lynn Spencer is our resident CPA firm owner. Someone, you know, we talk a lot about how important it is to have ongoing tax planning meetings with your CPA. If they're not doing that yet, or their CPA isn't telling them the things that they should be hearing.
We
how
don't
can
share that part of the story.
How
I
can they-
have a great CPA.
Well, how can they reach out to you?
You can get my number through the website, which is KillingsworthSpencerLLC.com, or call me directly at 770-552-8286.
And I am your host, Corbin Cook with SMB Strategy Consultants. And we focus on helping companies become more profitable and understand their cash flow. You can reach me at 404-783-3305, or of course the website is smbstrategyconsultants.com. Thanks so much, Wendy, and everyone else. Y'all have a great week.